The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that sank deep into your bones and made even the street lamps flicker as if they too were shivering. Rain tapped against the windows like desperate fingers begging to be let in. On the edge of a quiet, forgotten street, Daniel Harris, 35, tired-eyed, and carrying the weight of more than one lifetime, was trudging home from his late shift at the auto shop. His worn boots splashed in shallow puddles, and his breath curled in pale clouds in the freezing air. But then, just as he turned the corner toward his small apartment building, he saw her. A little girl, no older than 8, crouched under a broken bus stop shelter. She had no coat, just a thin, tattered dress clinging to her tiny frame. Her lips were trembling, her fingers curled into her palms for warmth, her eyes darting between fear and hope every time a car passed. It was the kind of sight that could stop a heart, and Daniel's did for a moment. Friends, if you believe in kindness, in the power of second chances, in the idea that one small act can change a life forever, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to Ripple of Hope, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that compassion still exists in this world. Your support helps us bring more true, heart-touching stories like this to life. Daniel stood still for a moment, the cold biting through his work jacket, wondering if anyone else had seen her. Surely someone had. But the street was empty, and the few cars that passed did so without slowing down. The girl's shoulders were shaking violently now. He could have walked on, God knew he didn't have much to offer. He was a single father already raising his 6-year-old son, Marcus, in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment, barely making rent most months. Money was always tight, food always stretched thin. But something about the way the girl's eyes met his, as if she had already been let down by the world too many times, made it impossible for him to keep walking. Without thinking, he took off his jacket, wrapped it around her small frame, and asked where her parents were. She didn't speak. She just shook her head, biting her lip to keep from crying. Back home, the warmth of the apartment hit them both. Marcus ran to the door, surprised to see his dad with someone new. Daniel explained softly that she would be staying the night, and Marcus, without hesitation, brought her one of his blankets and a cup of the instant hot chocolate they only had on special occasions. The girl finally spoke her name, Lila, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't say much else that night, but Daniel could see in her eyes that she was exhausted, not just from the cold, but from something deeper, something that had been weighing on her for far too long. The days that followed brought small, fragile changes. Lila began to eat again, slowly trusting the warm meals Daniel cooked. She laughed quietly when Marcus showed her his favorite cartoon, her laughter startling even herself as if she'd forgotten what it sounded like. But the shadows in her eyes didn't fade completely. Daniel knew there was a story behind her silence, a reason why she'd been out there alone in the freezing night. He didn't press her, knowing that trust was something you couldn't rush. When she finally told him, it broke him. Her mother had passed away months ago, and her father, well, the word father didn't deserve to be used for the man who had abandoned her to fend for herself. She had been living on the streets, finding shelter in abandoned buildings or under overpasses, eating whatever she could find. The night Daniel found her had been the coldest of the year, and she had nearly given up hope of seeing another sunrise. Daniel realized then that letting her stay for the night was never going to be enough. He started making calls, looking into what it would take to become her legal guardian. It wasn't easy, his financial situation was shaky, and the system didn't make things simple for a single dad already raising one child. There were background checks, home visits, interviews. Some nights, Daniel wondered if he was doing the right thing. But every time he saw Lila sleep peacefully under a warm roof, or watched her help Marcus with his homework, he knew he couldn't let her go back to the streets. Weeks turned into months, and the apartment began to feel like a real home. Marcus had a sister now in all but blood, and Daniel had 2 children's laughter filling the air after long, grueling days at work. The day the court finally approved him as Lila's guardian, she hugged him tighter than anyone ever had, tears streaming down her face. "You saved me," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. No, he said softly. You saved me too. If this story has touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Ripple of Hope, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that love can come from the most unexpected places. And before you go, drop a comment below telling us, what's one act of kindness you'll never forget?